Cassie Ventura is back on the stand, Mark, after a short lunch break. She is heavily pregnant, 8.5 months pregnant. I was just speaking to a lawyer who said that she's the most heavily pregnant witness they've ever seen in a courtroom. And in fact, P. Diddy, Sean Combs's legal team made the request, it was denied by the judge, but made the request that she didn't walk in front of the jury because they believed it may emotionally sway the jury in her favour. But certainly the testimony that Cassie Ventura has been giving is incredibly powerful. She was in a relationship with Sean Combs for just over a decade, an on-off relationship that ended in around 2018. But she is describing a control dynamic. She said that Sean Combs was incredibly controlling, deciding what she wore, where she went, who she spoke to every minute of every day. She said the prosecution will be relying on Cassie Ventura heavily in order to prove to the jury that he is what they say, which is a sex trafficker and a racketeer. She was being asked this morning about these drug-fueled sex parties that P. Diddy is alleged to have held, which he called freak-offs. She said that these freak-offs became a job to her. She said there was no space to do anything else. She said she was forced to stay out for days on end, to take drugs and drink, to have sex with strangers. She said that these freak-offs would sometimes last 72 hours. She said the longest one was 4 days, and even more on and off, she said, including periods to recover from the drugs and dehydration. She said that they had a violent relationship and that Mr. Combs would beat her on occasion. She said she suffered black eyes, red eyes and bruises all over her body. So incredibly disturbing testimony. And listening to that testimony, there are 6 of Sean Combs's 7 children. Goodness knows what they must think hearing such graphic details about their father's sex life. So Cassie Ventura continuing to give evidence. Sean Combs denies all the charges against him.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Lancescurv. We already know what's going on with the P. Diddy, Cassie Ventura sex trafficking case. We're bombarded with it because this makes for great headlines. It makes for great story. And many of us are glued to the gory details of what has happened with P. Diddy, allegedly. But I can tell you that world, that I've never been involved in the music industry, but as a nosy, overdeveloped teenager who had the body of a man and the curiosity of a nosy little kid, I found myself in many clubs that these types of things happened and went on. I wasn't really into the extreme stuff, but I wanted to see. Just like a child who may be 17 years old, I said child because he's not 18, finds himself in a topless bar because his hormones are raging. No excuses, that's just the way it is. And growing up in New York City, you have these opportunities to witness things. So I would find out the names of these places and go and watch and see. And yes, all that Diddy has done, aside from the violence I witnessed, I didn't witness violence in those places, but with all of this freak-off type activity, all I can tell you by holding up my right hand, even though you can't see me, it's real. That's not what this is about, but I wanted to touch on that. I want to touch on Diddy. What I feel is up with him. I just feel that he does not like women. Diddy despises womanhood for some reason. What happened to him when he was younger? But for you to be able to do this to a woman, right? And maintain some type of proximity. I can't even call it a relationship, but some type of proximity with her. That's sick. Like you met her when she was 19. And she's an aspiring performer, singer, and the relationship developed into something else. It developed into, maybe it was a relationship for a little while, right? But I also have to say that someone does something to you out of order. Why don't you leave? I'm not blaming her But I will say that she was starstruck. She's young. She feels she had it made, possibly because of the magnitude of his reach in the music industry. It's almost a sure thing, a dream come true. And many who are in the music industry or trying to get into it would love to have that opportunity. I understand that. But when things got ugly, why didn't you leave? Well, maybe you felt, well, if I leave, I won't have the opportunity to become a star. I can even understand that. I'm not going to agree with it, but I can understand that. And that was in the beginning of the social media age. It wasn't like it is now, but that was 2005. YouTube was around, Facebook was around, and it didn't permeate into society like it has now, because it's really toxic. It's really sick. It's a double-edged sword. You have the advantages of it, and then you have the parts of it that are just downright destructive. But this is not really about Cassie or Diddy, but this story is happening. This stuff that's blasted all over the news right now brings up a whole lot of other issues, right? I said the pain of a black woman. Now, how many black women out here have been beat down, used, abused, RAPE'd? You can't say the word anymore. And their pain goes unnoticed, ignored, and they have to grin and bear it. And I don't mean they're really grinning, but that's just a figure of speech. In relationships, on the job, in society, even in their own households where they weren't possibly equipped to have enough self-esteem to see themselves as bigger than these things that are thrown at them. What happens to the pain of a black woman, right? Now, Cassie, most would look at her and say, well, if you put her amongst white people, white women, they'll say, oh, she's a woman of color. She's not a black woman per se. Now, I'm not sitting here trying to do a DNA or to see what percentage of what race she is or where her origins are from down through the centuries. No, I'm not asking that. The image. Look at her. She didn't make herself. All I'm saying is see how society perceives her to be. Like, we have so much empathy. We have so much care for this young doll who got caught up with the big black monster, right? But nobody's really saying she stayed. She kept going back. She stayed. But then if this was a black woman, a full black woman, dark brown skin, chocolate, would they have as much sympathy for her? Because in our society, in America especially, and all over the world, the perception, many tend to look at the black woman as though she's less, that it doesn't matter. In a deep conversation that I had with my dear sister earlier this morning, even she said, look at Harriet Tubman. All that she has done to free slaves and bring them up north, that after all of that, she died broke, no money, in abject poverty. Not that she did what she did for money, but now all of a sudden, she gets acknowledged by the president. What does it matter? Look, that's an example of how full black women get treated. What about their pain? They work on a job for many years and master it in the corporate world. And they end up training some young upstart who might be a nephew of one of the CEOs. And quickly, he becomes her supervisor with the supervisor pay. When she's been there all of those years and gave him the wealth of knowledge that he has now. that he can't even master because he still has to come back to her to solve the major problems. The black woman has had to bear the weight of so much and produce. And when they're abused, they don't get the acknowledgement to say, hey, this is priority. This woman is hurting. She is valuable. The black woman is not treated as though they're valuable. But when you have a Cassie, which no woman should endure this type of abuse, don't get me wrong, but she will get the sympathy and the empathy and the caring heart from so many people, more so than if she had the image of a black woman. And that's how it is. Nobody wants to talk about it. And many will say, Lance, you're always bringing up race. Well, how could you not live in America and not have to face these major issues of race, often ignored because the black woman and the black man, they're on the short end of the stick. But who's going to talk about it? Who's going to talk about it? There are cases out here where women have been raped, even if the woman may have been a streetwalker, raped and abused, and they close the case because it doesn't matter because she's nobody. And of course, yes, they want to bring Diddy down, and he did what he did. Okay, let's just say allegedly. But rumors have been flying long before this. Any extreme things there. You don't put your hands on a woman in that type of way. You don't force her to do these types of things. You are sick. To me, you don't like women. You like men, and you will use women to inflict pain on them for whatever sick reason you have because of you despising womanhood. Because long before I knew who a Diddy was, I heard his name in the streets. And it was well known how he loved to get on his knees for another man, and we're not talking praying with the man. Did he love putting his mouth on other men? We all knew that. See, when you hear rumors, it may not always be true, but when you keep hearing them from different sources and you have an ear to the street and a slight ear to the music industry, something's got to be going on with that. But that's his personal preference. But the violence and forcing a woman to you urinate in her mouth and have a paid escort do the same thing? Like, if you're into that, fine. Knock yourselves out. I'm not here to judge. Maybe I'm a little wild and kinky in certain ways. I don't know. But we all have our taste. That's why when you go to a restaurant, there's a menu there with so many different types of dishes for you to choose from. Right? I'm not condoning even that. But why would you do that? That is not sex. That is not love. That is not intimacy. I don't know what that is. But you want to torture this woman? I don't condone any of that. All I'm saying is that when it comes to a black woman, if Cassie's imagery was that of a black woman, because she can be a shapeshifter, right? She can get amongst white folks and they'll give her a little more empathy because she looks closer to them. And look at it. Look at the banner. You see Diddy, you see her. Diddy can't change who he is. And I'm not saying that these things are brought against him because he's black. No, you don't get a pass for that. If you're a monster and you abuse women, I don't care what color you are. You're going hopefully for life. You have all of this power and influence and you do stuff like this. I don't care how much so-called good you've done, donations and grant the money that you give to people, because those are people in your inner circle, chances are. So I'd watch everybody that he's cool with. And there are many more Diddies out here that are blue collar. Yeah, there are white collar Diddies out here, but there are a lot of blue collar Diddies out here who work jobs, who have families, who abuse their wives, and those stories go untold. But don't get mad at me for bringing that aspect of it up. Get mad that it actually exists there. It only gets stirred up when something like this happens. And some of us have the courage to think about it and even talk about it. The pain of a black woman. How many black women out here go unnoticed because they don't have the complexion to have the right connections. Or we as a society look down on them and their pain doesn't count. Their pain doesn't register on our graph of sympathy. Think about it. And it's still just as bad. I hope that Cassie is over what she's been through. She's pregnant. I hear she's married again, happily. Okay, fine. More power to you. The trauma can last a lifetime. Hopefully she's over it. But what about the wounds that the black women have that get ignored? And those wounds every day are cut open again. They can't even heal. As soon as you think about healing, the knife comes to cut open that scar again. And it's a lifelong burden. And our sisters are so strong. They shouldn't have to be strong in that way, but they are, to deal with that and to keep on moving as expected by this society. Oh, you're a black woman. You can take it. You keep on going. It's no problem. Slavery has ended, but the mentality is still there. And the black woman has had to deal with so much from every end of society that we wonder, how can she keep herself standing? Only God knows. But think about it, and think about our sisters and the pain that they go through. Yeah, we spoke about P. Diddy and Cassie Ventura, but that was only a segue into this particular topic. There's so much that's going on out in the world, and we ignore the obvious. Sisters, your pain doesn't go unnoticed by me. I see it. I try to soothe you every chance that I get, no matter who you are. And that's what we need to do. We need to heal as a community from the inside, because we're damn sure not going to get it from anywhere else. That's a proven fact. Our wounds and our pain and our trauma as a people, and especially the black woman, often goes unnoticed, and this has got to stop.